All right, well, we're gonna start our discussion meeting and we'll start with Mr. McGill overviewing the agenda, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight, we will have the public hearing on the capital improvement program for 2025 to 2029. We'll have the introduction of an ordinance amending the purchasing code. The ordinance will incorporate statutory changes to the purchasing rules in the Commonwealth's first-class township code. We'll have the consideration of the concurring resolution for the 2025 CDBG grant application for ADA sidewalk ramp upgrades. We do this every year. There are 5 ramps that will continue on intersections with Bower Hill Road to sort of build on where we left off last year. And then we will have the consideration of the commencement of pension benefits for some recently retired employees.
Thank you. All right, first up, Mr. Ostergaard and Eric Milner.
And once you have a seat here. You're welcome. Big kids table. Thank you. All right, let me get this. Okay, good evening, Commission and folks at home. Tonight, we are going to take a few moments to review what I'm very excited about, and I consider sort of a bleeding edge project for the community. The installation of LED GoBo projecting public art in the district. So the design committee and the Mount Lebanon Partnership have been talking about launching public art for quite some time. And an opportunity arose last year for us to take advantage of something called an implementation grant from the Department of Community and Economic Development. And the partnership board felt what a great opportunity to go for that grant and actualize public art in the Uptown District. So working with Tim Steinauer, Paul Ostergaard, as well as other members of the design committee, we brainstormed projects and fell upon what we're going to talk about and present this evening. And behind me, you can see an example of what this technology can do. So the grant we went for was called an implementation grant. We were successful in getting that. The Mount Lebanon Partnership has been setting aside funds from the Mount Lebanon Artists Market as well as other endeavors to actualize the public art that we've been talking about for quite some time. What's exciting about this project is it requires very little maintenance and absolutely no disruption to the built landscape. This projects art onto the sidewalks, and it's agile and nimble enough that it can be changed out. And that's what we're going to be presenting tonight in the presentation. So I don't want to give too much away from Paul's thunder here. But what's fantastic about this is that we can constantly refresh the street without having to impact any of the hardscape. So that's the setup, and I think we can just kind of launch into it because you're going to hear more detail about what this is. And then, of course, we'll be available to answer any questions that the commission might have after we do the presentation. Okay, good to go.
Thanks, Eric. Well, I'm delighted to be able to present this exciting project to the commission. I am part of a very talented team of very dedicated board members that have worked on this for quite some time. And I sort of came in the middle of the movie. And projection is the theme here. So, I'm really delighted to have been able to participate in this. The idea is to create art with splashes of projected light throughout the uptown area of Mount Lebanon, principally on the sidewalks, and in 2 or 3 places on buildings. And these are seasonal lighting displays. They would be changed out in the 3 times a year or 4, however we want to do it. And these are these light displays come from projectors, which would be mounted on the light poles that you recently installed in Uptown. So what are we projecting? We're not projecting advertising. We're not projecting a lot of words. We're projecting imagery that corresponds to the seasons of the year that can be designed and easily inserted in the projectors. There are two, these are called gobos. And what we would do is have metal cutout gobos, which you see on the top, and then on the bottom, glass colored gobos. And we combine the two together to create really interesting, colorful patterns. And so they're layered, and it gives us a multitude of options for design and creativity. So you can see on the left a pinkish background gobo with a sort of flower display, and then below that a leaf display with a different color in the background. And this is what you would see on the sidewalks as you walk up and down uptown in the evenings. So we could use these colors on a seasonal basis. For instance, the two top gobos could be used for spring and summer because they're spring and summer colors. 4 and 5 for fall and winter. And then those would be the two on the lower right. And then possibly winter, we would use the cool blue and the bluish green. And we would purchase these gobos and have enough to accommodate all the projectors that we would have installed. And then this is where I think a lot of creativity will come in, and we're going to start with our design committee. We have some very talented people that will design these slides, these gobos, and such subjects in the spring and summer as flowers, butterflies, and birds. And then in the fall and winter, we switch the subject matter to objects from nature that are appropriate in that time of year, such as pumpkins and acorns and vines and things. And then in the winter, snowflakes and so on. So, and there would be a great variety each season up and down the street. And so this shows how the projector would be mounted, and just below the light element of the poles, you have an outlet up there. Each one of these poles has an outlet, and we'll just simply plug the projector into the outlet. We have a mount that the projector will be mounted to on the pole. We aim it down, and we're imagining about a 4.5 foot diameter projection on the sidewalk. And we may fine tune this. We're experimenting with a couple different lenses. The sidewalks on this side of the street, the south side, I guess, are wider than on the north side of the street. We would also need to place these very carefully because we have such things as projecting awnings and outdoor seating and so on. So we would be very careful in how we place the lighting up and down the street. There are some special situations. There is Parks Way where you have the crossing from the T to the stairs that go up to Route 19. And we could actually create a projected light crossing area with a special pattern. And Tim, who put this show together, illustrated the idea of a crossing in the lower image. And what he did was take this image that you see on the wall back here, and just one evening he went down there and just held up the projector to shine it across the street just to get a sense of what it might be like. This projector would be mounted up on the garage. We'd find a way to get power to it. So there are very exciting applications beyond just on the sidewalk. So what this map shows is basically Washington School to Clearview Commons stretch of the street. You can see the green diamonds are where the projections would be located off the poles. We also could project from Washington School onto the Bognar Building. That would be a black and white image because the Bognar Building is very colorful. And that could be a welcome to Mount Lebanon projection or something to that effect. That could have words. It could have a message that's seasonal or welcoming people. So we went up and down the street several times looking at the best poles for locating the projectors. And then if we go to the next slide, you'll see from Clearview Commons up to the public safety building and the potential locations for projectors on the poles there. And then one of the great opportunities for projecting on a building is in front of the Cyclops Plaza. I don't know what that's called these days, but
I don't
Cyclops
either.
Plaza.
Cyclops Plaza.
If you're from Pittsburgh, yeah.
If you're in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And
It's not changed.
it would be a projector mounted on a pole, but shooting onto the white wall that's on
Mhm.
in the plaza there. And that's a beautiful wall for projecting quite a large image. Again, a welcome to Mount Lebanon sort of sign. So this is the projector you see and the mount. And the overall budget for 16 projectors is around $16,000. We had another couple $1,000 for the mounts. We're at around $18,000 to $20,000 for this project. And what we have done is to actually order a second projector, which was delivered today, along with the mount and some 2 additional lenses. We're ready to do a test on one of the poles. We were thinking right out in front of the municipal building. Get the electrician to go out and we could work to set this up, see how it works. So that's where we stand right now. And if we get the agreements with the municipality in terms of maintenance and so on, we have the funding as a partnership. We also have a grant worth $32,000 from DCED to help pay for this. We're ready to go.
Yeah, and just adding to that, so this is a dollar for dollar match with the DCD grant, and the partnership has the funds in the accounts. We've met with our electrician numerous times discussing this. He feels very confident that this is doable. We would want to have a memorandum of understanding with the partnership. The partnership will be acquiring all of the hardware. The ask is that, Jason would install those, our electrician. Not a big deal. After talking to him, he's reviewed this numerous times. And we feel that we could get this up and running quickly. And again, there's nothing like this in the Pittsburgh area. I've seen this in Toronto and San Francisco. I've never seen it in Pittsburgh. So this is really bringing some sizzle to the region in terms of public art. And again, you can plug and play so many different images and so many great opportunities to work with local artists to create new gobo discs. It's really just endless what can be done with this type of technology. I don't think there's another slide. If there is, I think it's just this thing.
That's it.
No, that's it.
That's it.
I love the idea about the sidewalk on Parse Way. That's very creative. Thank you.
It is. Thank you, Commissioner. And again, I mean, that's the type, there's so much that can be done with this. This is really just scratching the surface. And I have to add that Paul and Tim and others really did a lot of due diligence on this. Walking up and down the street, we're very mindful of awnings, how this projects, how it should not and will not project into the cartway. There was a lot of thought and effort put into this.
Other questions, comments from commissioners?
Having sat on the partnership and seeing this basic presentation, I think it's fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun, and I look forward to all the variety that we will see. I am curious how much the actual gobos cost, right? I mean, because I was just thinking, yeah, there's not only local artists, but youth opportunities to engage, right? But I guess it would depend on how much.
The most expensive gobos are the glass color combinations. They're over $100 a piece, but you can get custom made cutouts. And we think we can do that locally. the supplier of this projection equipment also makes whatever we want in the way of gobos and patterns. But we might be able to shortcut that and make them locally. And the initial one is labor, but then they can make numerous copies for like $7 a piece.
So again, that just further emphasizes that there's so much you can do with this, interesting partnerships. And again, it's just the beginning.
Right?
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. I agree with Andrew. This is such a long time in the coming. I'm glad to see a lot of the placemaking stuff moving forward. We have great maker spaces in our school. It'd be cool if we can maybe figure out how they can generate some of those in our maker spaces to create some of those. That would be a really fun project, I think, for some of the kids at school. I had a couple quick questions, no preference here or there. I imagine, Eric, just because you're generally pretty diligent, in terms of putting it in front of the municipal building as opposed to, say, like Clearview Commons where more people congregate as a test, was there a specific reasoning behind the municipal building or the sidewalk there as opposed to another location?
I think a couple things. I mean, the intent is to create, a dynamic experience walking through the district. So we wanted to test that in that realm. Plus the sidewalk in front of the municipal building is wide and created intentionally through the Vibrant Uptown space to be more of a plaza. So that plays into that. And also it's brushed concrete, so it's a blank canvas, whereas in Clearview Common with the changes in grade and material, you have grass, you have all that sort of thing. This is just a cleaner canvas to project upon.
Yeah,
Cool, thanks.
we avoided the aggregate concrete sections, went with the clean concrete areas. It's more like a projection screen.
And just one final point. So these will be synced with the streetlights. So when the streetlights turn on at dusk, boom, these come on. And when the sun comes up in the morning, they shut off. So it's all synced. And I think it'll be spectacular in the evening. I think people will come up here just to experience it.
That was kind of a good segue to my next question. And I'm sorry if I missed this during the earlier presentation. I was listening for it, but didn't hear it, but it's possible I was just snoozing. Do we have to worry if these are going to be on constant, like, do we have to worry about, like I'm thinking about people who might get triggered by like strobe lights and things like that. Do we have to worry about any of that from these lights?
I'm gonna go out and say no, because you're seeing a slight morphing behind me, this sort of turning. That could be on, off, it could be much slower. At no point will these strobe or, it's not gonna be a discotheque. It's gonna be if there is a turn, it'll be a very gentle turn, similar to what you might see here, but no strobing, none of those sorts of effects. And if we find otherwise, all we have to do is shut that off. Actually, Paul and I just did that before the discussion session tonight, because it wasn't turning. We did a little maintenance and now it's turning.
No BJ's back music, huh?
No, well, anything's possible.
Jeez.
That's the second phase of our public.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Ziegler? You there? Nope, he had to get off. Commissioner Silverman? Already
Yeah, I think it's great. Just again, like not just the crosswalk. I don't know if we've talked about people stopping at the T-stop and really recognizing this is an entrance to Mount Lebanon. So is there a way to somehow do a welcome to Mount Lebanon or up the steps to wonderful things or something rather just that much more pizzazz for folks getting off the T or seeing maybe they should get off the T to, stop in Mount Lebanon.
I think those are great ideas. We've talked about some sort of welcome to Mount Lebanon lettering in the crosswalk pattern crossing Parsway. And we've also thought about lighting the barrel vault of the stair in some way.
Ooh.
Light
That would be wonderful.
to
Yes.
transform that rather dismal stair
Yeah.
into something more
And scary
exciting
stair.
and scary stair.
Yep, that'd be terrific.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent. I think great work on behalf of everybody that put this together. And I think it's just going to be an additional draw and matter a lot. Like it should only bolster what we're trying to do in Uptown. So I'm a big fan.
Good, great. I like it because it's not precious.
Right.
Just love it.
Just put it up and
Put it up.
play with it.
Let's play with it.
Yeah.
I think it's terrific.
Yeah.
So
You don't need to turn.
thank you for all the hard work to
Thank you.
you and the committee. This is a lot of work and we appreciate
A
it
lot of people
greatly.
involved. Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you for putting it on
Thank you.
discussion.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Main Park Site Plan. Mr. Burkle. Need my super glasses. Let's see this.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Sorry, hold on. I have all three presentations in the same spot. Get to the right. There we go. This is, there we go.
Oh,
Down there.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having us tonight. John Burkle and Alex Swaggett from Pasek MTR. We're here to present, more coming down the home stretch on the master plan. We have a draft document that we're fine tuning. But we wanted to present one final time to the commission to get any final feedback that you may have before we finalize it and submit the plan to the commission. With that, the vision for the plan is to develop anywhere from a 25 to 30-year master plan for Mount Lebanon Main Park and the ice center that revitalizes the park and meets the needs and desires of the community by providing recreation, accessibility, and engagement through upgraded existing facilities and innovative amenities. And you can see the goals listed below. These are all goals that were developed based on the input and the feedback that we heard through the comprehensive planning process, through the engagement process that we had for this planning effort. And really, looking at optimizing spaces, improving and expanding existing facilities, increasing connectivity and in particular mobility and access for alternative transportation in and around the park, creating more biodiversity and evaluating staffing needs for the improvements that we are proposing. We've had in-depth discussions in the past with the staff of Draw Collective, who's on our team, that talked about the options for the recreation center expansion, and a proposed additional building. And those are still part of the recommendations, but because you've heard them before, they're not here today to present on those. So we had a community event in July, and at that time, what we did is we took the concept plans that we showed you during our last meeting to get feedback from the community. So we set up a pop-up tent outside of the swimming pool, and it was perfect. It was a warm, hot day. People were rushing to get into the water. They didn't want to stop and talk to us. And then all of a sudden, a rainstorm came by, and everybody jumped out of the pool, and they stopped by our booth. And so we had a lot of input, and you can see that by virtue of the dots on the boards. But what we heard related to the recreation center, the proposed recreation center, the spaces that they preferred the most are basketball courts, the cafe and lounge, running track, strength and weight training, and cardio equipment. From a play space perspective, they are most interested in layout option 3 and the mountain theme, and we'll talk about those here in more detail in a moment. Other items, folks were excited about the potential for disc golf, pickleball, expanded entrance, gateway entrance, changes to the field area, circulation accessibility, and more seating throughout the park, and in particular around the athletic fields. So with that, this is just an aerial overview. We have Cedar Boulevard running from top to bottom on the left-hand side. You have the Morgan Drive entrance into the park. And then, of course, we have the high school complex on the right-hand side of the plan. This is the overview. We've always talked about the racket sports area, the athletic fields, the forested area up behind the ice rink, behind the swimming pool, the recreation center itself, and the play space, as well as the swimming pool area. So with that, we wanted to talk a little bit about connectivity because this is a piece that you haven't heard about before. On this drawing, we are showing the existing paths within the park, and those are either red, yellow, or green, depending on the steepness of slope along those paths. So the green paths are more accessible, the red paths are inaccessible paths, and the yellow are somewhere in between, more challenging paths. And you can see we were asked to give consideration to bicycle infrastructure within the park. And so we are showing with the orange dotted lines, bike paths or trails, if you will, through the park. So we have them coming in up parallel to Morgan Drive on both sides, up to the Rec Center Plaza, crossing over at the northern end of the parking lot, going back out to Stadium Drive, coming down through the roundabout, and then back out to Cedar. The orange dots with bicycles in them are proposed bike rack locations throughout the park. So we thought it was important to recommend bike racks in all of the active areas of the park, near the parking areas, near the facilities that people desire to access. It's great to have bicycle routes throughout the park, but it doesn't do a lot of good if you don't have a place to lock up and store your bike while you're in the park recreating.
Can I ask you a quick question? I assume when you have less than 8% paths and so forth, that's degree of grade?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And one of the things we were looking at with this too was the idea of, is there a way we can create a bike pathway through the park? Because we know that Cedar has a lot of vehicles parked on it, that there's, vehicles traveling on Cedar. So is there a way to, connect through the park while not having to, bike up and down Cedar Boulevard? So that was kind of the idea of that dotted line through the park, was creating a pathway to get potentially some bike traffic off of Cedar and have it using the park space instead.
But it doesn't go anywhere.
It should be known as a shared use path, and then it goes into the bike lane that's on Stadium Drive, which will connect to the existing ice center.
Yeah. So basically, to get from the sort of Cedar, Hollycrest, Morgan intersection, you could go up through the tennis center area, racket center area, excuse me.
Into the center
to
core
the
of
center
the park.
Yeah. The grades, I'm not a landscape architect, but my understanding is the grades on the southern end of the site were too steep to put in a accessible bike path at that
And we are also part of the team that will complete the active transportation plan. So we'll be looking at connectivity and on-road. How do we get to the park throughout that planning effort? But it was really important to us to look at how do we get connections internally within the park at this point. And then the larger active transportation plan will look at how we get residents to the park. So Alex is going to talk about the playground theme.
So yes, as John mentioned before, when we did our public engagement event, there was a choice between the mountain theme and the forest theme. The mountain theme was what the public most preferred, and these are some inspirational images that I believe you have all seen before of what the mountain theme could feel like for the playground. Additionally, there was the three options. If you guys remember, the first one is the terracing up the hill through multiple different levels. The second one is the larger area in the center with the topography pushed up and downhill. And the third one is the one where the play space is pushed downward to replace some of the parking. So it could be closer to the ice center and the existing bathrooms, but while still utilizing the hill for some hill play elements. This is the option that was most desired by the public, was to move closer and to replace some of the parking. And
This
with,
one also had a couple pavilions proximate to the play space area too, right?
all of them did, but yes, there is 2 pavilions for each of them, and this one also had the addition of the amphitheater uphill, so that hillside can be utilized for that, which we have also heard that Main Park does have some events that could utilize that space.
So 6 is the amphitheater bowl and 5 is the stage or bench shell, whatever it might be, moving forward.
So additionally, we also heard from you all, the staff, and some of the community about creating more of a dream plan for the racket sports area. So this plan is similar to the one that we showed you before. This is more of the short-term investments. So this has all of the items we talked about previously. The only additions for this plan is, like we talked about, the addition of the shared use bike path that goes through the center of this area, which is number 15, I think. And there was some discussion with the paddleball players on the location of the paddleball courts. So that is different from the previous plan that we showed you. And all of them are moved closer to the new ones are closer to the building, the paddleball building.
But these don't reflect what they wanted. Because as I recall, where you have number 9 as a new paddle court, the tennis court to the left is the one that the paddle court people wanted because they could look from the pavilion or the balcony of their building over that space.
That is correct, but there was a conflict because that tennis court is the most used tennis court for the tennis people. They like that one the best. And
Is that
it's a
because of
single
grade
court.
changes? Is that why?
Because it's a single court and there's not many single courts. So that one's highly utilized by the tennis people. So we tried to get the paddleball court as close as possible without losing that space for the people that play tennis.
Yes, we had a lot of back and forth with David, Darren, and the paddle court folks in terms of coming to a solution. And again, it's a master plan. Master plans evolve. If going forward, there's a decline and there's not a need for that tennis court and we can move paddleball courts over, so be it. But this was the kind of where we landed as at the end of our discussions with everybody involved.
So the next plan is thinking big, the dream, the long-term investment. So we know that the bubbles for the tennis court involve a lot of maintenance, taking them up and down. So there was talk about in the future having a field house building to replace those bubbles. So it'd be a permanent structure there all the time. All of the things that are in that existing tennis center would move to this where the number 1 is. So they would have a new space for storage, new meeting spaces, maybe a pro shop, things of that nature. And as you can tell, the tennis courts are located on the right side of the building, and then there will be indoor pickleball courts in the left side of the building. And there's a rendering we have in the next image that kind of shows what that would look like from the road.
And I think, sorry, can we go back one too?
Yes.
Because from up arrow. There you go. Down in the corner here, the number 4, that was something that Darren, our new racket center manager, was interested in. So that was a sort of championship style outdoor tennis court with bleachers on both sides that when we when we hosted bigger tennis events, we could have utilize that space a little more down in the corner there. So that was something that came out of discussions with David and Darren as well.
And with that, if the new field house is built, then the old tennis center can be converted into the maintenance and storage building, which we've heard there needs to be more of as well.
Does this plan eliminate the bocce courts?
Yes.
The building would take up much more space.
if there's a strong desire to continue with bocce courts, we can find space.
It was just a question. I know there was a very, I'll say loyal group of residents that utilize those courts on a frequent basis.
I'd like to see the bocce courts maintained if they can.
You're a bocce player, Commissioner Silverman.
I am not, but I know of some very loyal bocce players, and it doesn't take them a lot of space, but they love playing.
Is the space on the long-term investments? I'm looking at paddle courts on the top picture, right above where the old tennis center was. What is that? That's like just
That's
big.
the existing wall court.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't play tennis, so I get it. Thank you.
Believe we just did a project to do
Yeah,
some
you did.
improvements to that
Yeah.
hitting wall.
Yeah.
It's brand new.
Okay.
So the athletic fields, there are also some improvements to this plan from the last time we talked based on feedback. One of the primary things is, along the, lower part of the plan. I think that says 16, but I can't.
Yes,
maybe
it does.
Along
Okay.
Cedar.
16, while replacing that hillside with a terraced concrete seating, to help alleviate people actually being on that sidewalk. They can actually move down into the space and off of the sidewalk and sit there and watch the games, on middle field. And the other major improvement is number 4, which was again the Dream Big, replacing that concessions stand building. We moved it further into the hill, creating more space in front of it, so that plaza could be utilized, as we're calling it, the athletic themed plaza. It can have pavement markings, have different sports balls, and the idea is to maybe have a small little play area there for the families that are in those tournaments. They have someplace to go with their younger ones that aren't necessarily playing in these games. This slide shows what that could look like with the building, and with this building being set into the hillside, there is potential for seating to go on top of it. The existing stairs can go up to connect it, and this is not shown, but a ramp on the other side to ramp up to the top.
This could be more of a cafe style as opposed to a concession stand, but it could be leased to a concessionaire that could provide, the menu and provide the services out of the building.
And the idea possibly could have the playground equipment be sports themed. You can see the little glove nooks and the spinners, and also maybe like a baseball bat log jam kind of thing. And you can also see on here the entrance pillars and signs to kind of make this space more prominent. So this is not necessarily like the entrance of the park, but it's like gives it a place more of purpose than just being parking lot in the center like it felt like before. And the next slides have a couple more images of what that would look like.
We go back for a second, for another note. So the seating on the hillside along Cedar that Alex mentioned too, that was also some further thinking and in response to some discussions we had last time here with the commission, about seating around the ball, the turf field area, and also with recognition that within that turf field area, most of the, non-baseball activities that are happening within the soccer/lacrosse field footprint. So trying to get more seating closer to Cedar rather than looking at the wooded hillside where the sight distances are much longer and you're looking into the sun from that direction. Whereas, when the sun goes to the west, it'll be behind you if you're sitting along Cedar, making it more of an ideal viewing angle, and closer to the soccer/lacrosse field area. And there are existing bleachers down around the Seymour Field, larger baseball field. And there's, bleachers proposed in those areas too, to accommodate seating for Seymour Field as a baseball field, but trying to add seating for the other uses that are closer to Cedar kind of brought us to putting that seating on that hillside.
I'll add some comments later generally, but the Cedar Boulevard additional seating there, I think is fine. But people aren't going to sit on Cedar to look at the far baseball field. It's just too far away.
Right, and there's bleachers
Down
there
by those.
that are down by Seymour Field
Yeah.
also. So
I
there's,
believe it's number 9.
yeah, number 9, I
And
think.
then between 14 and the dugout along the right side, that lighter gray box
Mhm.
is also bleachers.
Yeah.
So there are bleachers along first base and third base.
And I think some of it too was, didn't these pull the dugouts back a little bit so that the sight lines between the bleachers and home plate weren't obscured by the dugouts? Because that was one of the
Correct.
challenges that we heard for the existing conditions is because of where the current bleachers are, people can't see their kids at bat, so they don't want to sit at them. So they'll find other places to sit so they can see home plate, basically.
Yeah. So those areas where you have now, so like 9, so where do the dugouts go? Is the little rectangle to the right of 9 the dugout now?
So
Yes.
dugout here, can you see the hand?
Yeah.
Dugout here,
Yeah.
and then bleachers over here. Whoop.
Here, I got you. Bleachers are here, dugout here, and then dugout here, bleachers here.
Got it. Okay. So maybe I'm crazy. Is the dugout like on the other side of the fence?
No, I think it would be kind of the exit of the dugout would be in line with the fence. It may be the projection of the drawing that may be a little bit off, but
Okay. Yeah, it's tough to see. Okay. And then how do these stands compare to what we have now in terms of, proportion and space seating?
We do have an bleacher seating analysis, and I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head because it's at the end of the presentation, but I can tell you what those are. Yeah, wait. Oh, John's pulling it up for me.
I see plus 160 on the concrete bleachers. Is that, where does that 160 come from?
The 160 is the amount of people that can fit seated on that side. For Seymour Field, the existing bleachers around it is 250. We're proposing 150 more seats. So that's where number 9 is.
Got it. Okay. So number 9 on both fields are where we make up the 160.
Just for Seymour Field
Just
is
Seymour.
150 more seats. Middle field, there's 50 more bleacher seats.
Mhm.
The 160 is an additional to the 150, so that would be 310 more seats total. 360 more seats between Seymour, Middle Field, and the concrete bleachers from what is existing.
Okay. And how many of those are any of those counted on 16, or is that all number 9?
That 16 is the 160 spectators on the concrete bleachers.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. So,
hold on, I think, is that on the slides?
Yes, it is.
Yes, let me jump forward to that.
yeah, no, I'm looking at the slide too.
Yeah, so just so the folks, our large studio audience can see too, as Commissioner Silverman likes to say. So the Seymour Field has existing 250 seats. The proposed plan would add 150 more. That was number 9 on the drawing. And then Middle Field has existing.
There's 2 number 9s on the drawing. Maybe that's what's confusing.
Right, one is for Seymour, one's for Middle.
Got it.
So I'll go back to this.
So middle, you're
Yeah.
taking some away.
No, so.
That's in addition
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry. Okay, never mind.
So this
Got it.
bleacher here on Seymour is existing.
Mm-hmm.
This number 9 bleacher will be a proposed addition. That's where some of the additional seats on Seymour are coming from.
And how many? That's what I'm asking. How many in that one?
150.
150 more right here.
Okay, got it.
And then middle field over here would add, number 9 is new bleachers in addition to the existing bleachers, which would add 50 more on middle field.
Mhm.
And then the concrete seats, number 16, would be the other 160 additional seats
Correct.
that Alex mentioned. Okay. That,
Got it. Okay. And then we lose bleachers by number 12.
There are no lost bleachers. They're relocated but not lost.
Got it. Okay. They're just on a different side.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are 360 more places for people to sit around that field in total.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry for how confusing that was. Okay, the forest and pool area, so the disc golf, I don't believe changed much since the last time we spoke. Possibly it was changed from a single track dirt trail to paved trails to make it more accessible from the last time we talked. We also talked to staff about the pool area. A big part was just upgrading some of the existing things. The pool liner and the pool shell and the pool system is proposed to be upgraded. Upgrading the existing water slides, replacing the diving board by the climb wall with the drop slide because they've claimed that too many accidents happen there with the diving board and the climbing wall being too close together.
It's a drop slide. I don't even know what that is.
A water slide.
To wash.
So we won't have a diving board at all, Mr. Donnell?
We're right.
What?
That would be correct, but it would be replaced with something that I think would be very popular and less risk.
Another item we heard was that the concession stand and the maintenance area currently conflict a lot with coming in and out. So the idea is to move to expand the existing pool building to number 5 to make a new concessions area and a new concessions plaza on that side, which would divide the maintenance area and the concessions area more inside of the building. We also heard that utilizing that hill more with the pool. So the idea for number 11 is to expand outward and create a sunbathing deck in that area off of the concessions. See picture of what that could look like. Also based on our last discussion here, I think there was some talk about what disc golf looks like. So I wanted to show some images of what a disc golf hole, quote unquote, looks like, which is what that basket is, and what a tee looks like, which could be what the one picture below is. So it's very minimal to what the changes to the forest area would be.
and as we said last time, the disc golf was really a way to try and find a way to activate some of that space in the back corner of the park that's largely wooded hillside without having a dramatic impact on topography or the neighboring properties, but to still give some kind of active use, but also with the walking trails, could also be kind of a passive recreation use too. You wouldn't have to play disc golf to be there. You could just walk through there and enjoy the trails.
What do they throw?
Frisbee.
Frisbee.
Discs. Frisbee is trademark.
So you could be
Sorry.
walking through there and get hit by a frisbee. Okay.
We can skim through these, but these are the recreation center options that we went through last time. There was little to no changes on these. The only thing that should be mentioned is option 3. It's the preferred option. which is great because that works perfectly well with option 3 of the playground. So it kind of lines up perfectly. So this one's the desired layout with the central access, and the parking either side and the playground lower down.
Then we were also asked to address the wayfinding needs throughout the park, and so you have the sign standards that have been
Pam,
developed.
I'm sorry, quick question. So you've got Recreation Center Site Plan Option 3, which is paid, yeah, that one. And then 10 pages earlier, there is Play Space Option 3. How do those jive, if at all? It looks like Play Space Option 3 cuts into parking and is different than
It actually matches
It's
perfectly.
the same
It's the
as the Recreation Center Option 3.
okay, it is. Got it. So we're opening up space on the left side in front of the ice center,
Right.
and then we're losing space where the playground is denoted on the right side.
Right.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
So then, with regards to wayfinding and signage, taking the sign standards that have been developed for the park, and Ian and David had asked us for recommendations on where the different sign types should be placed within the park. So we have entrance signs, which are the large red circles. We have building signs that would identify what each of the buildings are with blue circles. And then amenity signs, which are the small orange signs. And then the green signs are directional signs that will, say rec center with an arrow pointing in that direction to get you there from other areas of the park. In terms of management, operations and maintenance and staffing needs, our analysis is showing that we will need 2 additional public works / park staff to maintain the park and the proposed improvements. And then with the new recreation center building, we're looking at a proposed staff, paid staff of 7, a rec center manager, 2 program coordinators to program the activities in the proposed building, 2 front desk / customer service representatives, and 2 building maintenance staff. There would be instructors, those would be specialists in their field, and those would be, paid part-time staff as needed, contracted.
And it should be noted that the 7 is only if that brand new extra building is built.
Yes.
Correct. Questions?
I just have some general comments if that's where we are in here. So I'm doing these just in order of the presentation. So just related to the pickleball, let me see what page that was. Where's
This slide?
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. I'm moving my screens around so I can fit everything up on it. Okay, so one of the things that we keep hearing from the Parks and Rec Board is the sound of the pickleball. So I'm wondering 2 things. Can we get all the pickleball courts together, even if it means getting rid of tennis or relocating tennis to a different area? Can we get pickleball together in one area? And how do we attenuate the sound of the pickleball courts? That's been a constant complaint of the residents. They've come to a lot of the Parks and Rec Board meetings to complain, and the Parks and Rec Board just recently made a recommendation that we actually cut back programming time at at one of our playgrounds with pickleball because of the sound going late into the night. So that's one comment that I have related to that. The options with the playgrounds, the mountain theme, just a couple notes. It kind of seemed a little disjointed to me. Just the landscape of it doesn't seem to be kind of in line with our themes. I mean, our theme is, you know, this is home. That was our comp plan, and you know, that's our website. This kind of feels like, you know, I'm traveling to like an Aztec desert. Most of the commissioners know that I'm not one to shy away from lawsuits, especially when it comes to things like zoning, but I see those long slides and like I get scared. I'm sure Phil understands what I'm talking about. YouTube is like awash with kids and even bonehead adults flying off those things and getting injured. So I'm not crazy about really any of those designs. I'm just wondering if there's a better way to make use of the grade and the space as it relates to playgrounds. I don't know that those are necessarily, you know, finished options. I'm guessing you're just giving, you know, some ideas of like, hey, this is what it could look like kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't include the background when you're looking at it. We were looking at play structures and play features more than we were the type of character of the landscape or the environment behind it.
Sure.
And certainly this is, you know, a 10,000 foot level in terms of a master plan. Actually getting into the design of the play area itself, we would get into much greater detail about the look and feel. These are really just, we refer to them as precedent images of what it could look like. Mount Lebanon, mountain as a theme became an obvious choice. And then thinking about incorporating fog as in with the mountains, if you will, became a theme that folks latched onto as we went out to the public and the folks here on staff. We're real excited about
The
this
idea of the
particular team.
volcano of Mount Lebanon
Yes.
was a real big hit.
I think we just have to give all the children wax paper pants to slide down these slides. That would be the way to do it.
Or like put them in
I'm not
bubbles.
sure if that quite answers Commissioner Grella's question. I think we have to give them all speed bumps or something other to make them go slower.
Sense of fun.
I think from a broad perspective too, what we were looking to try and capture was rather than just having kind of generic playground equipment that
Right.
our signature community park should have something that tells you, hey, this is it should have some kind of signature theme to it rather than just being kind of generic playground equipment that doesn't look any different from any other park,
Right.
is what we were going for.
And we want to make it a memorable space. So when people come to, they say, I want to go to Mount Lebanon to go to the mountain park, the mountain play area.
Just moving on to play space option 3, which you mentioned was the preferred one. This is just my opinion. I don't know that any other commissioners share this, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to cut into the existing parking there. I'd rather see us move up the hill and even out some of the grade up there to push the playground up, because a lot of that space just really isn't used. And I get the idea of doing an amphitheater, which I actually think is a really good idea, and we could program that space. But the playground is used. And if you're in this area during football games, soccer games, really anything that's going on at the stadium up there, that parking is packed. The high school parking is packed. The ancillary lots are packed. It's really hard to get a spot if you're trying to go to the fields down below or any of the playgrounds there. And that makes it also tough for the people who are just going for the rec programming that might happen to be happening at the same time as any of the high school sports. I know we had separate plans or, you know, kind of ideas of what parking lots might look like down there. And I don't think we've seen a real good option yet, but I'd rather keep the parking that we have or maybe expand left like what you were showing in option 3, but also expand right and then push the playground options up the hill a little bit. It's going to cost more with the cut and fill, but I think it makes it a much more usable space and gets us that parking that we need. Just,
So
Can make the slide steeper.
that's right, longer and steeper slides, that's what I'm asking for.
So there are a couple of things. We didn't mention number 7 on option 3 here. That's 23 additional parking spaces. They're just moved further away from the existing recreation center. So we gain those spaces there, plus we gain some spaces over in front of the recreation center on the left-hand side of the recreation center.
And
There's-
where the volleyball court was.
Yes, and where the volleyball court was. So we have looked at putting in parking where we can, but we also heard from a lot of people that we don't want Main Park to become one giant parking lot. And so we were very careful and strategic about where we could sneak or expand parking in without paving the world, paving the entire park here. With regards to the layout of the play space, that we heard loud and strong, both through the comprehensive planning process and through this process, that folks don't like the fact that the play areas are separated topographically, like they are today out there. And so there was a real desire to kind of bring them together, put them on as much of a level plane as we could. And so this theme is the theme that responded most to that. One of the issues that prevents us from doing it further in options 1 and 2 are the serpentine walls. We heard the serpentine walls are sacred and that we wanted to retain those in the design. We could have looked at other options, but the goal was to preserve those walls. And so therefore we were working around them. So options 1 and 2 show more of a terrace situation like we have.
And another factor we heard a lot from, which is why I think people preferred option 3, is the bathrooms. They're lower and by the existing parking lot, and moving the bathrooms and the playground as close together as possible was something that families really wanted.
And we would have to make the bathrooms accessible and add family and blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. Yes, absolutely. We're on a tight schedule, everybody, and
Oh, can I address the pickleball for a moment, the noise issue?
yes.
So, Mr. Grilla, you had asked about the noise associated with pickleball. In earlier schemes, we had them oriented north-south, which is the preferred solar orientation, if you will, for pickleball courts. But after doing some research and sitting in on some webinars put on by acoustic engineers related to pickleball sound and noise, the direction of noise travels along the length of the pickleball court, if you will, so from side to side. And so we actually rotated the pickleball courts so they're oriented east to west. That doesn't mean that it's eliminated the sound, but it's changed the direction of the sound. So the direction of the sound would be more prominent going towards the tennis courts and going towards Dixon Field. And then in the upper one would be more prominent going towards the ice rink and then towards the east there.
But we could rotate number 8. So those.
Yes.
Don't.
Yeah, I would encourage you to listen to the Parks and Rec Board meetings. If there's video available, I would encourage you to do that. The location of number 6, where you have it now, is the same orientation at Meadowcroft Park, and that's, a main complaint. So it's not a quiet sport. And when those fields are open late into the night, it gets very loud and those residents get very upset. Now, part of that we can say, hey, listen, you live across from a park, right? And you have to have a certain understanding that there's going to be activity there, for a certain part of the day. But, as we get into the night, it is tough there. It's great. We, at the last couple Parks and Rec Board meetings, we started discussing some sort of attenuation. It was thrown out there, like putting up walls, which I don't think is a great option. And I think it really starts to get ugly in how we do that. But the Parks and Rec Board members were looking into additional options for attenuation as well. So I would recommend taking a look at those videos and even speaking to those residents that live in Meadowcroft, because they do have some valid complaints about the sound.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we had a long discussion, in the very beginning about putting pickleball courts, down on the existing tennis courts, along Cedar Avenue, and those are the also preferred, the most desired tennis courts. The pickleball courts, as you can see, fit in the same space. We can fit 6 pickleball courts in the area, the same area as 2 tennis courts. So again, there's some flexibility as this process moves on and the plan is implemented and we have more engagement to make those decisions. But you know, considerations of where the bubbles are, and the bubbles are there for tennis, and so making sure that we maintain at least, you know, those in a scenario. The field house is the ideal scenario because that puts your pickleball courts inside.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think we need to move on because we have another big one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay. Mr. Campbell and Mr. Payne. You're up.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's our pleasure to be here. I'm Larry Payne. I'm a managing principal with WTW Architects, an AE Works company.
John Campbell, WTWA Works, project executive.
And John is also a resident of Mount Lebanon. So what we want to do tonight is give you a brief overview of some of the deliverables that we'll be generating as part of this study. Listed before you, and then we'll end up where we are on the overall project schedule. With regards to the design team, besides WTW, we have Walker Partnering Consultants on as part of our team, who had previously done some studies for the South Garage, and we've previously teamed with them on other local garages as well. In addition to that, we have Gateway Engineers. We're collaborating with them as well, given their experience with the site and Mount Lebanon. That's been a great partnership with regards to being able to get the information that we need. That you'll see that we've generated some graphics, and we've used the information from Gateway to help generate these graphics. You'll know that obviously that this Ascend Lebo was an initial study that was done where it identified several parcels right next to us, literally, that could be developed into additional retail, office, and housing opportunities that were identified in this study. The proposed area for our development is very specific to the South Garage. And what you'll see in this outline, and as we go through the design options later in the presentation, is that we are proposing to move Municipal Way on this slide technically to the north, or up on the slide, so we can make the garage more efficient and still maintain and provide access for service and deliveries to the municipal building, the Citizens Bank building, and other surrounding buildings. One of the deliverables we'll be providing will be this local amenities assessment. So it starts off with identifying key project and proximity sites. What is within, say, a 5-minute walking radius of the South Garage? Should mention that many of these graphics will really be incorporated into an appendix of the RFP that ultimately goes out to developers. So the idea here is we're providing a very comprehensive reconnaissance of the site, zoning of the site, zoning requirements of the site, that also includes the envelope, both horizontal and vertical permissible extents of the site, so that once this RFP goes out, developers will be able to provide adequate responses to the RFP. We're also doing a contextual study that will give developers who may not be local to the area. A very good understanding of what actually is included from an urban context, neighborhood context, general site analysis of the surrounding area. So we were basically taking images of surrounding architecture so that developers will understand the context of Mount Lebanon. Potentially an all-glass tower would not be in keeping with the context. That's why we're showing the use of brick and aluminum and punched openings, and just understanding the types of color of brick. That will all be documented with regards to this specific study that will be included as part of the RFP. This particular slide gets into more of the buildings that are immediately surrounding the site, including this building, as well as the apartment building, and will give developers a very good idea as to the areas in between the proposed site and the surrounding buildings, including the apartment building, Citizens Bank building, as well as the municipal building. When this project is being constructed, obviously the garage is going to be demolished, and we're going to have to figure out where will patrons park while the garage is both being demolished and then the new garage and development is being constructed. So part of this graphic is identifying potential opportunities where there are existing parking lots that may be able to share resources with Mount Lebanon while the project is being demolished and then constructed. We start off by showing the amount of parking spots in each one of these parking lots. The intent is to be able to review what the overall or the general capacity or usage of is for these parking lots during the week, so we can understand what type of net capacity is available during the week and see how that offsets the amount of spaces that we'll be losing. So this is, once again, just an initial documentation of some of the surface parking lots that are around the site and within.
Yeah, I would say in the smaller sort of orange radius closer to the site is things that are kind of within that closer walk shed, and then the larger radius would be within a drive shed if we wanted to go down the route of considering a shuttle service or something like that to Uptown. So obviously we wouldn't ask people to park at the Galleria and walk to Uptown. That would require some kind of shuttling or something like that. But just to identify locations where cars could potentially be if we wanted to pursue one of those routes at some point in the future.
So with this being the first meeting, these graphics will continue to be developed. We're probably about 6 weeks or so into the study. And I feel like we're making good progress on all of these various deliverables. With regards to the zoning and code analysis, John's been diligent about working on that. We will include these types of graphics in the document that goes out with the RFP, but we've shown that the site is a designated planned mixed-use development.
Yeah, no, I like that. I want it planned.
Yeah.
Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll be identifying various setbacks for the site. So on this particular graphic, you can see how we are proposing to move Municipal Way. Won't be any less wide than it already is, and we'll make sure that garbage trucks and any type of service vehicles will be able to maintain access to the municipal building, Citizens Bank building, as well as the additional buildings that are north of the municipal building on this site. You can start to see that with regards to the setbacks, we're confirming that the setbacks for the front yard, side yard, rear yard, and side yards are really 0 feet of this particular instance. And we'll get into the color coding of the plans as we start looking at some of the design options. With regards to vertical capacity, the current zoning permits this 98 to 120 feet above Washington Road. So you're looking at it both from the Washington Road side and from the Florida Avenue side, so that you can understand what the actual maximum envelope that would be developable is. You'll see as we continue on, we're showing a development not going that high, just from a contextual standpoint. But the current zoning would permit development to go almost as high as the adjacent apartment building. As part of the deliverables and what will be included in the RFP that goes out to developers will be a very comprehensive code summary we've been compiling. So this is just a quick graphic that will cover the developable area as well as the height limitations, the setbacks, and just really a whole code and zoning search for this area to make it very apparent to developers what is possible on this site. With regards to the P3 RFP framework, which is public-private partnership, we have been a part of P3 developments as well. So we have a nice library of P3 RFPs that we'll be pulling together. And I would say taking the best of these RFPs and combining it into an RFP framework that we will compile for Mount Lebanon and work with Ian and company to be ready to go out to developers early next year. ParkSmart, that is, if you're familiar with the LEED rating system, LEED rating is a system used to sort of grade the level of sustainable building strategies that you incorporate in buildings. ParkSmart is the equivalent of that for standalone parking garages. So and because there are a number of opportunities here with regards to how is the garage managed, the types of programs that are provided as part of the garage, the technology and the structural design of the garage, as well as innovation strategies. Because that all influences design, this was one of the first exercises that we went through with the entire group to understand what were yeses, what were nos, and what were possible design strategies that we should consider while we're going through design. So we can provide PDFs. You're not meant to actually be able to read this, but these are all various strategies. Yeah, these are all various strategies, especially with regards to programs. Are you providing electric vehicle charging? Are you providing locations for bicycle parking? Are you working to make this more than just a parking facility and incorporating other programs, whether they're built or just structured programs as part of this garage? Are you raising awareness to sustainable design? A project that we completed in 2019 next to Acrisure Field was the Gold One Garage, and they incorporated some specific sustainable strategies. And we were happy to say that that was the first ParkSmart Gold Garage facility in the world, given when it was designed and completed. So we're using this as sort of a framework to help guide some of our design decisions.
To interrupt real quick, since you provide a slide that we just can't read, are you going to be able to give us something that is a bit more readable at some point down the road?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Yeah, that is printed out on 11 by 17, and we can also provide a PDF. The benefit there is that it also shows of the strategies, whether it's yes, no, or maybe. It also shows what strategies, based on the ParkSmart program, what strategies who's responsible for which strategies? The design team, the owner for making decisions, or the developer or the contractor for providing the appropriate backup materials if you would go and submit for this particular program. At this point, we're using it as a framework to inform design, and we've not really said, oh yes, this wants to be a ParkSmart garage, especially because if we do a P3 development on top of it, it would not qualify as a ParkSmart garage. It would qualify under a LEED, the appropriate LEED program.
Yeah.
So from a conceptual standpoint, for this scheme, one of the things that we're showing is that we'll be having, we're proposing two-way circulation through the garage. You'll both have access from Washington Road and access and, or ingress and egress from Florida Avenue. We'll also be looking at an opportunity to create ingress and egress from Washington Road as well. The design is not there yet, but since we do have two-way traffic within the garage, it would certainly make sense to be able to get out of the garage and into the garage at both levels. You'll see that the green spaces are designated for EV parking. One of the things we heard at the initial design meeting from the fire department was that if there were issues with regards to an EV catching fire, that they really wanted to be able to pull the vehicle out of the garage and extinguish it outside of the garage instead of trying to do it inside the garage. So we would be proposing to have those spaces be at the level of Florida Avenue, and would anticipate working on a design option that includes some operable grills that could open up and let those cars be removed if there was an issue like that. You'll see, once again, these are fairly small images, but the middle image of a typical floor level, essentially where the current pedestrian bridge from Washington Road lets you access the garage. We'd be replicating that to a point. We'd be having the appropriate fire stairs, elevators, and then you'll see there's a yellow segment that would show a portion of the garage that would be dedicated to bicycle parking. That was another point that we heard early on in design. And also south of that, the pink area would potentially be short-term parking. So we understand from talking with Ian's group that you have a real problem with people double parking on Washington Road, especially with folks like Uber Eats or anybody picking up deliveries from restaurants and then taking them to patrons. The idea here is to try and provide short-term parking where those individuals would be able to park, access the restaurant, and get back and get out within a 20-minute span, and have essentially free parking for that 20 minutes, and hopefully limit the amount of double parking on Washington Road. With regards to some of the concept sketches, this is essentially showing two versions of a similar scheme. One would be just the new deck with the ramps and the bridge for the actual parking deck. The dark blue area represents a potential connection to the municipal building, which would actually connect right outside the wall that we are looking at, and would be dedicated to municipal employees and not necessarily public. So you would not get into creating a separate security access issue. That would be card access for municipal employees. You can see that the bright orange area, once again, would be ingress into the garage and or P3 development, as well as pedestrian access. We'd like to look at the opportunity for making that two-way traffic to really help support the delivery issue, as well as the overall level of design for the garage, so that you would be able to, for people making a right onto Washington Road, so that you would be able to ingress and egress onto Washington Road, similar to what you can do on Florida Avenue.
Do you think that PennDOT is gonna let you come out of there and take a look?
No, we've all
No.
talked about.
Right.
Turn only,
Yeah.
gonna say, I think that would blow up their heads. Sorry.
Yeah, but honestly, one of the things we heard right off
Yeah.
the bat was the one-way circulation where you have to circulate all the way down,
Mhm.
really isn't efficient.
Yeah,
Uh,
takes forever.
so we've working with Walker Parking, have come up with this, this design where we will be able to fit, two-way traffic. And then, on the right image, let's just call it the purple rectangle that you'll see in a couple additional slides would be a potential P3 development, whether that is a hotel, whether that is multifamily housing, would remain to be seen. But you'll see in the coming slides, when we start looking at the height and the massing diagrams that we've started to generate, we're basing the size of that rectangle on actual projects that we've done similar in similar areas like the Strip District.
Okay.
So this gets
I know we're
into,
running out of time, so while you mentioned the P3 development, just somewhere in the notes, I saw you had maps of if it's a hotel rooms or if it's apartment rooms. Is there anything in the lit that you're sending out to encourage people maybe to utilize the space with these great sunsets and to say, is it some sort of event space such that that view can be utilized, lecture space, event space, something along those lines? Royce, it's up to public-private partnership to be interested, but at least as we're advertising, this is an opportunity to talk about that wonderful view that's available.
Yeah, and I think we do want to structure the RFP in a way that is going to let potential developers be creative with the space. But we also wanted to just sort of conceptualize a little bit of what's feasible within the space. If we start to, talk about how many parking spaces can be created, that sort of sets your number for potentially how many residential units are available, things like that. So just having that as supplemental information will be useful, but I think you're right, Commissioner Silver. I think we do want to let developers be creative with how they use the box that we're creating.
Because that is.
I just want them to know that's one of the uses for the box. It wasn't clear from the presentation that that was even an option.
yes. So the initial option 1A is just really the garage, which we would anticipate a structural slab on top of it. That would certainly be an option. And if it had a structural slab on top of it, that would provide for even a P3 development at a later date, or right off the bat could be used as a rooftop patio, community garden over the parking garage, a type of green space that was to a certain extent identified in the initial study that was done. So we're just showing from an initial garage only option that would certainly be an opportunity. Certainly the other opportunity would be to do a PV array. One of the studies that will be included with the contextual study will be shadow analysis to show how the impact of the adjacent apartment building, what type of shadow would that cast onto the roof of that space during the summer versus the winter. So there's multiple studies that will be included as part of that context study that would also include vehicular and pedestrian circulation around the site and actually through the site with regards to the stairs that are directly adjacent to the municipal building. Moving on to potential for P3 development sort of envelope, if you will. We're showing this opportunity here that basically, once again, goes almost to the exact same height as the adjacent apartment building. That's the maximum allowable, but we'll also see what we were proposing for design options in the coming slides here. Another option that we looked at was potential for a P3 development in addition to a rooftop patio or a community garden. And in this instance, the blue tower that you see next to the municipal building will not only help provide access to the garage, the P3 development, the municipal building, but would also provide vertical access to get up onto the rooftop patio, which we think would be a really wonderful opportunity, especially if this goes to a hotel type design that would provide banquet amenities, because in some of our initial studies, we found that if you want to have a wedding reception in Mount Lebanon, there's really not a good location to do that, and you're going to adjacent neighborhoods and townships. So to be able to provide, you know, have almost like a one-stop shop where you could have a reception, you could have out-of-town guests stay there, and you would have ample parking for that on the weekends. When it comes to doing a shared parking analysis, that would be another activity that we'll do that will show how that parking garage would be utilized 7 days a week. The proposed sequence in this issue is pretty straightforward with regards to demolishing the existing deck and the ramps, replacing the deck and the ramps with the new garage structure, and then building a new P3 development on top of that garage and extending the vertical circulation, the stair towers and the elevators and the service elevators up as needed to service that any development that's proposed. This provides just a quick section through the site that is picks up on what we just looked at three-dimensionally, where you can see the ramp being demolished along with the existing garage, and then replacement of the existing garage and the ramps, and then the potential for the new P3 development that would go on top of that garage. If we do a structural slab on top of that garage, then the footprint of the P3 development is not limited by the column locations of the garage.
Well, good to know.
This is just based on discussions with Ian and his group, a pretty simple graphic showing how the proposed stair and elevator tower could be connected to the municipal building, and where that potential entry would be, and would be specific to municipal employees. These concept sketches begin to show in plan what we just looked in 3 dimensions with regards to that purple block being a P3 development. So you can see from a setback standpoint, given the residential development along Florida Avenue, we were looking to step back the massing. And certainly that could be an accessible green roof. We just need to modify locations of stairs. But there would certainly be programming opportunities on top of that structural slab and at the, which is basically at the Washington Road elevation, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needs to be stepped back. I agree.
This was a quick study to sort of help, I would say, quantify or prove that the box that we're showing for any P3 development would actually be able to work from in this case, a residential standpoint. So once again, we've done a lot of multifamily housing, especially in the Strip District over the last several years. And we have very efficient and good and efficient unit designs. So this was simply taking a standard unit design for a 2-bedroom and showing how you could have a double loaded corridor with a mixture of 2-bed and 1-bedroom apartments, in addition to community spaces on those specific floors. Similarly, if there was something along the lines of a hotel type space on the upper floors, this would show how a queen unit or a king unit would be able to be organized, and about how many units you'd be able to fit. This will ultimately be able to tell us the amount of parking that will be needed for that specific space. So once we get into the shared parking analysis, to understand how many spaces are needed during the day versus how many spaces are needed in the evening to support these types of developments, we'll make sure that the garage is right sized for the development. This represents from a elevation standpoint, your actual vertical allowable height per zoning. You see the 98-foot height that's measured above Washington Road. And given what we were showing earlier on some earlier slides, you can see the height of some of the models that we were showing. And it's really meant to be, and this was also mentioned in the Ascend Lebo report, more of a transitional space between the 1- and 2-story buildings on Washington Road starting to step up with the municipal building and then stepping up even higher with the adjacent apartment building. So this was really meant to be this transitional type development that lets you gradually step up in lieu of, stepping up a full 98 feet. Keeping in mind that any developer would say, if this is allowable, we may want to maximize what we can build. But we could also set some guide rails in place with what what Mount Lebanon would prefer to see.
Just briefly to add to this one, in more ways than one, just because you can build that high doesn't necessarily mean you should. And code comes into play. Once this building gets taller than that purple block there, it starts to take on a whole new level of code requirements for fireproofing and so forth. That would make the cost much higher.
Much higher, sure.
From a schedule standpoint, these are the last couple of slides. So this just shows where we are today. We're about 50% through with the feasibility study. And we're looking to complete a lot of the conceptual evaluation sometime mid-November. And then you'll see in the next couple slides to have things ready by the new year. But we've had our kickoff meeting, we've had several land use development group meetings. The intent is to present to you at least another 2 or 3 times so you can see how everything is developing. As we move into the later part of the year with regards to November and getting into the December, you'll see that the idea is to once again continue to review how this is developing and start to get into some more specific detail, especially with regards to the RFP for the P3.
And that yellow bar there indicates that a cost estimate. So part of what we're doing toward the end of this month is trying to establish enough that we can have our estimator begin to assign some rough order of magnitude.
Sure,
cost.
sure.
Yeah, we do have in-house cost estimating, so it's been very nice to be able to just connect with him directly. He's already started working on the demolition of the garage. So, that was one piece that he can start working on right now until we get some additional narratives and until we get some refinement of the actual parking deck. So
Great.
I think that is, this just finishes up with regards to the draft study versus the final study, getting us into mid-December. So with that, if there are any further questions, we'd be happy to entertain them.
We're late, so I think we've gotta zoom
I
into.
tried to sort
No,
of
you
zoom
did
through it.
fine,
Yeah.
you did fine, we understand, it was a
Yeah.
packed meeting and we had a packed pre-meeting but we've gotta go into the other meetings, so I think any questions?
I do have a bunch of questions, but I'll hold them. I'll get a hold of the architects and the engineers and CC the commission with the questions later and go from there.
Okay.
Just send them to me, I can forward them
Yeah,
on to the.
Ian.
Great.
should
Yeah,
go
that's
through
fine.
Ian.
Yep.
You want us to forward you have
Yeah.
the.
Sure,
Yeah.
yes,
That.
yeah.
Okay,
All right.
Thank
see
you very
at the
much.
commission Meeting,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.